Is here, and in our business update we're going to be looking at the ripple effects as the Central Bank of Uganda rates hit 10%. Of course, you're looking at the war in Ukraine, the on and off lockdowns in China, a persistent power crunch and disrupted production chains that have bumped up into a huge appetite for goods as well as services. You're looking at the upsetting of the delicate balance between the supply and the demand and driving prices to record highs as we speak today, the 11th of October 2022. In almost synchronized manner, you're looking at central banks from all over the world rushing to raise their key interest rates in a bid to tame soaring inflation, which, much to their dismay, continues to break on a monthly basis, and the records are disturbing. Bank of Uganda in particular raised it to 10% most recently, and seemingly the situation is deepening until the mid of 2024. Francis Muhire, who is an economist, is here to highlight this conversation for us. Francis, we have had you here at Morning at NTV almost since the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
We had the recovery of the economy. We blamed it on COVID-19 and the issues that came and the challenges that came out of that. We also then had the Ukraine-Russia war, upon which one of the things that went downward was the fuel prices that almost reached 7,000 Ugandan shillings. And you are here painting for us confidence economically of the short-term applications that we can adopt as an economy of Uganda to be able to jump that hurdle. Here we are, Bank of Uganda is telling us it's now 10%. How have we gotten here?
First of all, for me, it's not a surprise. And we as economists or researchers, we prefer, telling you what we think is going to happen. We don't want to give you hopes when we, just to make your life comfortable. This one person that has been telling actually most of the people that it is going to get worse, so that you can actually prepare and be prepared. But one thing I want to make clear is that however much we normally, talk about these short-term or medium interventions, for us, we just give our views to influence the policy, but there is an implementer out there. But also I want to remind you that even before, let's say, the locust invasion, the COVID-19 pandemic, already was struggling as an economy. The only difference is that these external shocks came in, whether it's the pandemic or the Russia-Ukraine war, these are external. And these have put the entire world at that high risk. And when you talk of, for example, inflation, it's a global phenomenon. Every country is fighting, inflation. However, inflation is something that is really wide. The inflation that is, let's say, being faced in the developed world or the global north is somehow different from what we are facing here. Because, for example, when COVID-19 came in and, there were lockdowns, we saw, let's say, North America, Europe, because people were, were being, laid off. So the governments came in and gave, unemployment benefits. They pumped a lot of money into the circulation, to the extent that some of the people actually deposited this money in the bank. So there was a lot of money, even up to date, there's a lot of money in their economies. So they are trying to fight that. And the best way to fight that is increasing interest rate, which is not the case here. So, and I'm going to tell you how we are fighting we are fighting a long war. The kind of inflation we are facing in Uganda is not demand pull inflation, not at all. The kind of inflation we are facing today here is structural inflation, imported inflation, and cost push inflation, which is not demand pull inflation. So that's why even if the central bank, increases even CBR at least 20%, still you're going to see actually more issues coming up.
And for the inflation types that you have mentioned that you believe is what we're grappling with here in Uganda, how best can, say, for example, Bank of Uganda treat that rather than opting for the 10% increment?
Unfortunately, the central bank here in this country has just a single mandate. It's actually main role is actually to ensure that prices are stable. So that's why all the time it is talking about inflation, and it does not talk more about other important macroeconomic variables like unemployment, because this high inflation itself, one of the causes could be unemployment, and inflation itself at the same time can also lead to unemployment, and that is what is happening out there. Most of the people, especially the youth, they are unemployed, they are not productive, they have been positioned as a liability, not an asset, so they even don't have this purchasing power. So even if the central bank comes and increases the central bank rate, and even we saw actually in July, according to monetary policy statement for July, it wasn't only the central bank rate that was increased, but even the cash reserve requirement was also increased to 10%. Now, these mechanisms, they are contractional. They reduce the amount of money in circulation, but we are saying, wait, the problem is not that we have a lot of money in circulation. Even if the money was a lot in circulation, how many people actually hold this money? You know, it is either in Uganda just one person to either embezzle government funds or public funds and disorganize the entire economy and even increase inflation. So if that is the case, then this has to be looked at deeply, you know. And when we look at our financial sector, we still have a lot of issues. There's a lot of money which doesn't even go through the formal financial sector. So the central bank cannot actually track it. You have a lot of capital inflows, capital outflows. So it also becomes, you know, very, very hard.
Okay, looking at the inflation rate here, 7.3% expected to increase to 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Between 8 and 10, you're looking at the term down being 5% in 2024. That's many months away. And this is according to the Deputy Governor of Bank of Uganda. What are the risks that are involved in this wave?
So this is the central bank actual projections are based on the fact that, for example, the Eurozone, they are going for winter. And you know that almost Russia has been, you know, supplying their 40% of their energy, you know, demand. And they go to winter, you know, their demand for energy is going to increase. But remember, Russia has cut off its supply. Even the Nord Stream 1 that was left has also been, you know, destroyed. So you're going to find that actually the energy that was going to the global south or the developing economies like Uganda or Africa in general or Latin America. So this demand, I mean, this energy is going actually to be, you know, also being wanted to be consumed by the Europeans. So that increase in demand is going to put more pressure on the prices on the energy from here. So the central bank is projecting, saying as Europe goes into winter, there's going to be an increased demand for energy resources, and yet some of the big suppliers like Russia is not going to be supplying Europe. So that's why they're giving this projection that between now and probably next year around March or April, it's going to be worse. Wow. So we might see inflation even going, you know, beyond you know, a single digit. You're talking about 10 today. It might even go beyond that. Because where we are going, I will not lie to you, things are going to get worse. Okay,
speaking of things worsening, you're looking at Uganda's exports right now. There's constrained demand. There's weakening of the shilling exchange rate. You're looking at lower exchange reserves. You're looking at external financing constraints. All this is playing to the tune of what Bank of Uganda and what you're referring to globally that has been put out there. I guess my question then is, how best can we maneuver through what is present and resuscitate the economy nevertheless?
First of all, I will start by making this appeal to the central bank that the mechanism that we are actually being put out there, they're actually worsening the issue or the problem at hand. For example, as I've said, the central bank is, you know, using a contractional monetary policy, and this itself, for example, when talk of exchange rate, our Ugandan shilling depreciating, as for example, you use this contractional monetary policy itself is going to discourage investment. You know, the fact that there is high uncertainty all over the world, you know, global economic recession is real. We've seen most of the investors, whether foreign or domestic, who are actually investing, let's say, in Uganda, whether it is in government securities, they are now taking their wealth to save it somewhere else, either in developed economies or investing it in gold, for example, to hedge against inflation. So you're saying that this kind of mechanism you're using, they're actually making the matters worse. Now, more to that, you know, when you want to make your currency appreciate, you know, the best way is always to see how you can boost your exports. Not as we've been doing or we are still doing as a country, by borrowing. You know, we are borrowing, you know, to the extent that we've even had to get our special drawing rights from IMF. That is not the best way. The best way is to boost your exports. How do you boost your exports? For example, as a country, where is our strength? How come that our mining sector only contributes only 0.4% to GDP? You know, is it because the mining sector is not well structured? If you had your mineral today, do you know where to go to sell it? No, because the whole structure is just left in the hands of the cartels, and that's why we have the challenge. So we are saying that as the government, how do you boost your exports? We've been, the government saying about import substitution. You don't just stop on singing about it. It is very good. That's what we need. But how do you ensure that it works out? You know, the entrepreneurial environment is tough in the country. You've talked about credit. One of the highest, interest rate averaging between 21%. It is one of the highest. In fact, foreigners find it easier to, to come and, start business here than local Ugandans, because they can easily access low capital from their countries, and that's why they're flooding the market in the real estate, industry and other
tourism.
Exactly. So Ugandans find it hard. So how are you going to, ensure that the import substitution strategy works? So at the government, that's why we keep on saying that one of the solution the government should do is starting by having a restrictive fiscal policy. Stop spending on non-productive sectors. Yes, they might be important, but you're giving them more attention.
What would you consider right now as non-productive for us to resuscitate the economy?
So when I say that it is a non-productive sector, I don't mean that it is not that important.
True.
And I'll give one example is security and governance. It is important, but is not productive. So we are saying, yes, those sectors are very important, but they are not as productive as, let's say, the agricultural sector, the health sector, the education sector, because these are the sectors you need to put more resources. You're talking about human capital development. So all these kind of things we are saying start by having that restrictive fiscal policy and also change your spending behavior. I want to tell you that, for example, COVID came in. Now you have the Russia-Ukraine war. Other external shocks can come at any point. You never know when they will come. But you as a person, Priscilla, have you seen really the government doing much to adjust its spending behavior? And we are in a period that is not normal. Actually, no one is certain of what is going to happen tomorrow. You have the escalation of geopolitics all over the world happening. When you look at the Russia-Ukraine war, it's not just between those two countries. It is between two blocks. You have the East and you have the West. And most of the people think that agriculture is not important until Russia invaded Ukraine and they realized, oh, even the Chikomando, I will go and eat out there. The wheat is coming from Ukraine. You want to tell me that we cannot grow wheat here? No, we have the potential. The problem is that as the government, the priorities have been shifted to those non-productive sectors I was talking about, and productive sectors like agriculture, which are very, very critical, have been left behind.
So at the end of the day, we still have to wait for 2024 for any of this to be implemented, because what you're referring to may come down to budgeting, and if it's considered, then we'd have to wait for the next financial year for that to be amended in terms of the attention to productive sectors versus the non-productive sectors, which again is a long time from now. So between now and mid-2024, no solution.
So as I've told you, it is, as you look for the short or medium-term solutions, you also want to have, you have this, that's why I was telling you that even before these external shocks started happening or these events, it's not that we're doing well. These are actually some of the issues we're having. And we are saying that the number one mistake we are, as a country we are doing, the government is, having that fiscal indiscipline at the maximum level. All these challenges, when you keep on behaving like that, when these external shocks happen, they find you at a more vulnerable position than actually other economies. And that is what is happening. How many people are talking about, for example, the people that are dying of hunger in this country, not only in Kalamuja, but across the country? So the attention is not actually put on the real problem. So you have to come up with actually the real solution. You think it might actually bring both short and actual long-term solutions.
Okay.
Yes.
So bluntly, in your opinion, what is being done by the officials, such as the interest rate increase, is not so much a solution?
Yeah, personally, the central bank's approach and the government's approach in general is not going to solve these solutions. Yeah, I don't want to tell people that they should get hope given to what the government is doing right now.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Francis Muhire, for shedding that light in regards to the